Okay. Hopefully the audio is good today. I know there's a couple people live, so I don't think that we'll have a whole lot of people joining us right away. But I'm glad to be back. I was off for this month, taking care of personal issues and on recovery. Oh, my cat's over here being a little bit extra meowy, a little bit noisy. Yeah, you're a good girl, honey. Yeah, you're a good girl. They found we had some rain. So, of course, whenever we get heavy duty rains, that always pushes in a little field mouse or a vole or two into the basement. And they've been quite active. They found one. So they're all full of themselves today. Hope everybody's been doing well. Okay, let's see. So, my goodness, the LCU is on fire with people throwing up personal photos and personal information. And of course, TC Chroma, that seems to be the go-to whenever somebody gets angry with somebody else or feels like they've been slighted in some way. It's always to go personal, not to attack the content, but to attack the personality. And it's quite frankly, it's getting a little bit old. There's a whole lot of tit for tat. And the amount of people that really seem to have no issue with just foyering everything, just to see if they can find out something. And and that's a wonderful thing to be able to use FOIA so you can educate yourself to find out about events, perhaps investigate people that perhaps may be running for office, moving into your neighborhood, things of that nature. I mean, the ability to access public information is there to serve the public. However, it seems to be crossing lines to satisfy vendettas. So that's what I'm going to talk about today is the right to privacy, intent, context, and also touch on a little bit of smear campaigns and negative PR and that type of thing. So I hope you all will join me and you'll find this information interesting. You'll see it from perhaps a different perspective and where the right to privacy, the right to research and sharing of information may cross the line. So, hi, Shaylee. Thanks for coming in. Happy to have you over here today. I hope you find this information helpful. As always, remember to share, like, and comment afterwards or just chat amongst yourselves. Looks like we only have got a few people in right now, and that's fine. So I am going to get this started because I do have something to take care of a little bit later this afternoon since we are having major weather in tomorrow, and we are on where I live is on a path for tornadoes. So all the planters and pots and all that garden stuff that I got out last weekend to get ready to start planting for this weekend needs to be packed back up and moved back into the garage because I don't want anything that could get picked up in a straight line wind or a macro burst. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump right on into this today. Okay. Before I get going, Shaylee, can you hear me? Let me go ahead and before I start going in, I don't want to do like I did last time and speak for about an hour, not realizing that the audio wasn't being pushed out to the YouTube. That was, it was, I had a very good laugh about it. And that's, if it would have made me upset, I wouldn't have come right back on once I had realized that the situation had taken place. Okay. Looks like it's going all right. Okay, so here we go. So, and all this also boils down into the First Amendment, our right to express ourselves and to share information. And we all know what the First Amendment is. So if you don't, you can Google it and we'll go from there. But so here we go. Intent. Um, Make that bigger. And here we go. Intent generally refers to the mental objective behind an action. The concept of intent is often the focal point of criminal law and is generally shown by circumstantial evidence such as the acts or knowledge of the defendant. In criminal law, criminal intent, also known as mens rea, is one of the two elements that must be proven in order to secure a conviction. The other being the actual act or actus reus. Some jurisdictions further classify intent into general and specific. It is sometimes difficult to draw a clear distinction between these modes of intent, but the Supreme Court has held that general intent corresponds loosely with knowledge of a crime, whereas specific intent refers to the purpose behind committing it. So that's where we're at when it comes to in the law as far as crime goes. But this also is relative when it comes to civil actions. And the slide is up there if you'd like to screenshot it. Okay. And does intent matter when it comes to doxing? Doxing and intent. Doxing, which involves publicly sharing someone's personal information like their address or phone number with the intent to cause harm or incite others to harm them, is often illegal. So, oh, one moment, please. Okay, thank you for waiting, guys. I apologize. Okay, doxing and intent. Doxing, which involves publicly sharing someone's information, like their address or phone number, with the intent to cause harm or to incite others to harm them, is often illegal. Intent to threaten or harm. If you share information with the intent to make someone fear for their safety or to incite others to harass or harm them, that can have legal consequences. Intent to inflict emotional distress. Sharing private information that you know will cause someone distress can also lead to legal action. Intent to defraud. Public concern versus private facts. Sharing personal information that is already publicly available and relevant to a matter of public concern is generally permissible, while sharing private facts without a public interest justification can be problematic. And I think this is where in YouTube, I think this is where the disconnect comes in. And so I would really impress upon people to really take a few moments to sit back and evaluate exactly why they want this information out there. Is it really a matter of public concern? I mean, YouTube creators, by and large, while they are public figures to a certain degree based on their following and their reach, if they're strictly like commentators or debaters or opinion givers, so to speak, the nitty gritty of their private lives, would that be necessarily our business? You know, that could be that's kind of that kind of might be the issue here. So just really think about that, and what is your motivation? because motivation leads to intent, which is why something's being done. So just think about that. Just keep that in the back of your minds. Privacy and consent. Generally, sharing someone's personal, excuse me, generally sharing someone's personal information without their consent is not a good idea and can have legal implications depending on the context. And we'll get into context in a little bit. Invasion of privacy. Sharing private information without consent can also be considered an invasion of privacy, which can lead to civil lawsuits. Defamation. If the shared information is false and defamatory, it can lead to further legal issues. Now, defamation has come up a lot recently in several communities. And there's this back and forth that seems to be going back of basically it's a tit for tat. You said this, so I'm going to say this. I'm going to dig further so I can bring something else out. Now, absolute truth is definitely a defense against any defamatory or defamation claims. But there's also something called reciprocal defamation, meaning that I'm suing you. I'm bringing a case against you because you're defaming me. Now, the person that you're filing suit against can turn that around and say, well, you are defaming me also. So it leads to this tug of war and this back and forth. And what happens with something like that is, okay, I'll get into the weeds if I go into this, but I will have a slide mentioning this and with some further resources if you'd like to read about the reciprocal defamation and how that can waylay your case. It's like almost like get it set aside because of a back and forth situation. So again, keep that in mind if you are wanting to get into the I'm going to put this out into the public because they said this, the back and forth, the tit for tat. Nothing appears to be off limits at this point, and we're going to get into that as well, because I'm kind of sitting back and catching up and seeing some of this. My gut instinct is that information is coming out in the back and forth situation, not to bring awareness, but to facilitate conclusions, to allow people to draw their own conclusions, so then they can start rumors based on those conclusions, just based on bits and pieces of information where there's no context. I think you guys can really understand that. So, okay, let's move on. Context, the importance of context. Context is vital in legal matters because it helps determine the true meaning and scope of legal rules. Taking words or phrases out of context can lead to misinterpretations and misapplications of the law. Civil law is the counterpart and the typical objective of comparison to the common law. The distinction between these two legal families is one of the few on which comparative lawyers largely agree. In highly simplified descriptions found mostly in older texts, the unique feature of civil law is often identified as legal codification, especially of private law. The main aspects of this legal mindset are the doctrine of legal sources, the systematization of law, the method of statutory interpretation, and the role of legal authorities. All of these things influence the way in which law is applied in everyday practice and are the products of specific historical evolution. The fundamental character of civil law can only be understood when the interplay among these factors is considered. And the reason this is also very important and why I want to bring it up today is because having a little bit of history on the laws themselves, the statutes themselves, I think will help inform decisions going forward. At least I hope they will. And it will also allow you the opportunity to see what's going on around you with a different mindset, with clearer eyes on certain topics. Because again, in the chats, you see people saying, well, that's defamation, or that's slander, or that's this or that. You need to be filing papers, or you need to go, to the police and file charges, and so on and so forth. And the list, the litany of things is as long as I am tall, and I'm only 5'1". So, it is a long list. And there's processes in place. So I just really want people to understand, when they're throwing things out there, that they may not necessarily be able to receive a remedy to what they're claiming, because they're engaging in it themselves. Okay. Privacy, the internet, and you. The destruction of reputations. Individuals will experience shame and embarrassment, even discrimination, when details of their personal lives are broadcast in court records available on the internet. The PRC, which is the Privacy Resource Center, has been contacted by many individuals who have relayed such experiences. Reputations will be destroyed because of errors. Oh, wait a minute. It looks like we're buffering. One moment. Okay. I'm going to Okay, I'm back. I think it just may be a little bit of a YouTube issue. Hopefully you guys are doing okay and the stream is still going. At the very least, you can still hear me. And hopefully all the slides will come through. Go. Personal safety risks. Victims and witnesses who are named in court records could be put at risk. The personal safety of victims of domestic violence and stalking, for example, could be jeopardized. A domestic violence expert has contacted the PRC and has told them that many victims of stalking and domestic violence do not file cases in court because they do not want their private information being in the public arena for fear of it being used by the stalker to locate or harm them. Witnesses of crimes can also be put in harm's way. And that raises an issue when you're requesting information on people's addresses, and you're coming across things that not only could it cause them embarrassment, but we don't know what happens to people offline. We don't know what the chatters' lives are like, or what creators' lives are like. They may be suffering from domestic violence or some other type of situation in their home front, and that's why the police or first responders may be called to that address. And I would like to think that people would respect that privacy and not put that information out there. for the whole of the internet to see because it's really nobody's business. Unfortunately, it's not just trauma, but I've seen it in other communities where personal situations that the only reason they are known is because of a FOIA request. Just think about that. I just don't think it's necessary. And again, when that type of content starts showing up, I check out because I don't want to be privileged to that type of information on people. It really is none of my business. So here we go. Secondary uses of information. Data from electronic public records files will be used for secondary purposes that stray from the original public policy purposes for which they were first created, that being government accountability. Compiling public records information from several sources and merging them with the commercial sector data files allows the data to be sifted and sorted in many different ways. Brand new records are created. The types and uses that can be made of these new records extend far beyond the original public policy reason for collecting them. As we know, robocalls have now got access to the electronic telephone databases, tax records, the public access to real estate information, get walkthroughs of people's houses that you don't like. That just thinking about that is so invasive, of strangers seeing what the inside of your home looks like. And when that's happened in this community, of a potential crime victim in their family. So just really think about what you're using the information for. We've become a dossier society, but there are far more serious consequences to merging disparate electronic files of personal information into massive databases. We are becoming a dossier society. Extensive histories, whether accurate or not, are increasingly available at the click of a mouse to virtually anyone. And that should frighten everyone. Everyone. Law professor Jeffrey Rosen discusses the negative consequences of a dossier society in his 2000 book, The Unwanted Gaze, The Destruction of Privacy in America. His main concern is the compilation of bits and pieces of information about us from disparate sources, taken out of context, and then used to form conclusions and to make decisions about us. He says, when intimate information is removed from its original context and revealed to strangers, we are vulnerable to being misjudged on the basis of our most embarrassing and therefore most memorable tastes and preferences. The aggregation of digital biographies by such companies as ChoicePoint enables investigations to be carried out on millions of innocent people without any suspicion or oversight by a neutral judge or magistrate. Now, ChoicePoint just happens to be one company, but because everything is now done electronically, anyone with a computer or a cell phone can start looking up everyone's information. And excuse me, I needed a drink there. So essentially, this is exactly what it is. Creators are creating their own electronic dossier of people they have beef with, that they have aggravation with or about. And that's not exclusive to creator on creator. I know that subscribers, or at the very least, people that are in the open chat, have been targeted. It's getting out of hand, in my opinion. The assemblage of data about us portrays a distorted persona, one who is constructed by a variety of external details. Our digital biography becomes an unauthorized biography, only partially true and very reductive. Digital biographies are increasingly being used to make important decisions about us by employers, marketers, and the government. Our digital biographies can expose us to dangers such as identity theft and stalking. Digital biographies are often inaccurate. Solo cites the errors in the data supplied by ChoicePoint to a Florida election officials that prevented many individuals from voting back in the year 2000 and wrongfully listed them as being felons. Solov has since published a book on the subject, The Digital Person, Technology and Privacy in the Information Age, 2004. Privacy protects us from being misdefined and judged out of context in a world of short attention spans, a world in which information can easily be confused with knowledge. And you can further research this at the privacyrights.org. And I think that's, in my opinion, based on my observation of what I've seen, because I've been more of a consumer of the content over the past month because of not really being able to be online, recuperating. I think there's a lot of things that have been taken out of context. And I think people are being judged, perhaps rightly so, when you couple what you observe from that person with what's being presented. But is it going to change anything? I mean, is it really going to change anything? You know, if there is a channel with 386,000 subscribers that you inadvertently or intentionally find out in their personal life may be a nice person, your contact of 1,200 people and exposing that, is that going to make a difference? Maybe, maybe not, but at least you're getting some information out there. But do you have the context? Because when you're only getting the piece of, you know, the copy of that piece of paper, it's lacking knowledge. You're only receiving information. So I think this statement, again, I'll repeat it. Privacy protects us from being misdefined and judged out of context in a world of short attention spans, a world in which information can easily be confused with knowledge. And I think that's another part of the disconnect that we may be having recently in several of the communities. So we'll move on a little bit further. Okay, intent. And this is where I want to get into malice. Why is somebody doing something? Let's make this bigger. Oops, nope, sorry, wrong button. Malice may also be used in connection with defamation cases or controversies concerning the First Amendment. In defamation cases concerning speech, written or spoken, that makes allegations about public officials or public figures, not private individuals, the Supreme Court has ruled that these types of plaintiffs must prove actual malice on the part of the person who made the allegations, meaning that they either knew the allegations were false when they were made or exhibited a reckless disregard for the truth. Case in point is the New York Times versus Sullivan, and that is 376 U.S. 254, originated in 1964. Context is important because it provides the necessary background information to fully understand a situation, statement, or idea. Without context, communication can be easily misunderstood or misinterpreted. In legal, business, or everyday situations, understanding the context allows individuals to make informed decisions. respond appropriately, and ensure clarity in communication. Context helps to avoid ambiguity and ensures that messages are received as intended, reducing the likelihood of confusion or error. Important. The defense of qualified privilege helps to ensure that individuals can freely communicate information that is necessary for the legitimate interests without fear of being sued for defamation. It strikes a balance between protecting reputations and allowing for open communication. In the statement, if the statement is made with malice, i.e., with the intent to harm or with reckless disregard for the truth, the qualified privilege will not apply. I'm going to repeat that. If the statement is made with malice, with the intent to harm, or with reckless disregard for the truth, the qualified privilege will not apply. This goes back to a lot of, I just want to get the information out there so people can be informed. There is a lot of context that's lacking, but at the same time, when you've got so many, and when I say so many, I mean more than 2 or 3 saying, well, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. It goes back to that back and forth. It goes back to that reciprocal defamation. Nothing's off limits anymore. A dox for a dox, a FOIA for a FOIA. Not only in many circles may that be seen as morally reprehensible, it may also be seen with the intent to harm, to cause embarrassment, or to incite. Because when you're doing it to an audience of more than 1 or 2, we don't know who's watching, we don't know who's listening. And while I've heard someone say, well, my intent wasn't to cause any harm to the person, I just thought that people had a right to know. Well, it's all well and good saying that, when at the same time, nothing's been done to negate the rumor and the sometimes very violent, nasty comments that show up in your chat. The moderation's not there. And if you're going to have moderators, have them moderate the chat, let them know that it's not no holds bar. I'm just presenting information. We don't need to have discussion about it. Okay. We can't infer, we don't want inferences made, and you certainly don't want to say things in a way that where there is no ambiguity. You are simply implying or outright saying that the reason this happened must be because of this when you weren't there, type of situation. So hopefully, and please feel free to screenshot any of these slides that you would like. Here's a slide that you can screenshot, context and the role of the judge in civil law. In civil law jurisdictions, the judge's role is often to apply the provisions of a codified law to the facts of a case, taking into account the relevant context. Context in the legal scholarships, legal scholars play a role in understanding and interpreting civil law codes, often considering the broader context of the law and its historical development. And then here's just a little bit of information about what is a civil case that you may find beneficial or helpful. Also, I'm going to take a moment to catch my breath, take a drink of water, and here are online links that you can screenshot or write down real quick to have for future reference if you would like to delve deeper into these topics. Just Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So give me one more moment, see where we're at. Okay. There we go. And we'll move on to this is important. Dark PR, smear campaigns. And this is where we're going to actually, I'm going to hold off on this for just a minute. And let me see. Okay. All right. Okay, it doesn't really look like there's anybody in chat, so I will go ahead and go through this. Dark PR and smear campaigns. Dark PR agencies are experts in their field. They generate false messages, spread disinformation, and use social networks to weaken and denounce their target. To achieve this, such dark PR professionals manipulate the opinions of stakeholders in a targeted manner. Why do they do this? Because it works. It's also called negative PR. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to replace corporation, company, and organization with person, people, or community. We are going to see a direct relationship between what we call the sides. The dark side, the green team, the boss ups, the Roach crew, the Betty Boops, and I'm that you're seeing some of this go on in the LCU. It's definitely 100% in trauma, and by extension, I guess it would be true crime. But this is very specific to the community that has formed around the missing child from Tennessee. And I want y'all, I'm going to go through this with you. I want you to see it, think about it, and tell me if you see similarities with what's been going on and how this all ties together and may go back to that original injunction and RICO that if you haven't seen yet, that the two defendants did win their anti-SLAPP motion, and therefore the case in its entirety against them was dismissed with prejudice. I did update that information to my Docs, FOIA, and RICO live stream. You can find that in the description on that live in the description. Okay, how does dark PR work? Before the actual consumption of a specific dark PR measures, attackers must first identify a target for their campaign. Possible targets are whole companies as well as single persons. Gathering information and identifying vulnerabilities. So-called crawlers search the network for company data, which in future will form the core of the lubrication campaign. Now, again, replace company with creator. People out there searching out anything they can find about a creator so they can discredit them in some way. Not only information that is currently available on the net is collected, but also information that is no longer available on the surface of the net is made visible through online archives such as the Wayback Machine. This means that older websites, versions of the websites will become visible through applications such as the Wayback Machine, because what has been made public digitally once will remain forever. Other application practices to access information are, for example, hacking, espionage, data theft, and Google. Building a foundation and creating content. The methods and tactics used in the context of dark PR or smear campaign are manifold and almost limitless. At this point, only a few examples will be listed. Honey traps. Where have we heard that term before? Here, a target person is shadowed or seduced in order to put him or her in a compromising situation and to record it for posterity by video, voice, or photos. To make dark PR perfect, the material is decontextualized and embedded in, among other things, fake news. For example, a picture showing the managing director of a company with another woman can be embedded in a false report with the aim of accusing the manager of adultery. Dark PR agents can also create their own written content and thus send manipulated evidence to colleagues, neighbors, or friends of the target person. In other words, to anyone who is capable of causing lasting damage to the target person's reputation online. Does this sound anything like an agency that has made itself known across the internet? I see similarities. False or fake content. Let your imagination run free is the motto here. In this case, an attacker invents, among other things, false or a misleading blog or social media article, or creates a website with false content. The goal, to present a company or person in a negative light and thus damage or destroy their reputation. The smear method is easy to implement and can show great success because with a little faith and sufficient evidence, people who have even the slightest affinity to the widespread false and manipulated content will believe it, especially when the news that is spread corresponds with their own worldview. And that gets into the limited hangouts I discussed, that creating a narrative to push a preconceived notion or a confirmation bias or even a normalcy bias can fester that leads into this. It all will go back to a narrative that lacks context, but there's a point. The point to it all is to cause reputational harm. And we're seeing it, and even if somebody doesn't have a good reputation to begin with, but the fact that, well, we're just going to make it worse. We're going to entice others to go after further information. Maybe somebody's got more deeper skills. And, while it's only research, well, when you're acting almost as a skip tracer in some of these events, be aware that certain jurisdictions require a license to be a skip tracer. So be careful with some of that as well, because again, for your own personal information, obtaining data is one thing, but a mass dissemination, it's a slippery slope, because all it would take is one well-versed individual to go in front of somebody that matters and be able to prove that your intent was not personal edification, but to cause reputational harm and or emotional distress to somebody. Most recent, we've seen how good lawyers and how good lawyering can win even the most convoluted cases that are set against them. It's something to keep in mind when you're engaging in the tit for tat. Unauthorized leaks. Attackers can leak damaging information about a target person or their company to intelligence services, competitors, or others. This in turn can damage the reputation of the targeted person or company in the digital space. Manipulated reviews. Online review sites such as Yelp are exemplarily infiltrated by attackers with the help of various camouflage tactics, including trolls or social bots, and are used for the purpose of manipulation. This way, disinformation campaigns can reach a public broader public and present the target person or the targeted company in a bad light without having to invest large resources. Reach the right addresses. Thanks to digitalization, it is now easy to reach a large number of people in a very short time. For the distribution of dark PR content, i.e., a smear campaign, so-called dark ads are a good choice. This is the distribution of dark online advertising, which is only visible to the publisher of the ad and the previously determined target group. This way, the publisher can send different ads to different target groups and thus increase the success rate of the dark PR or smear campaign. Dark ads are often found on online platforms and in social media, but also via publisher networks, darknet, and the deep web. The manipulated and reputation damaging content can be circulated because many roads lead to Rome. Who is affected by dark PR? Me, you, he, it, and we. In principle, almost anyone can be a victim of a smear campaign and be targeted. Replace dark ads with creator packet or discussion points. Replace the networks and deep web with YouTube and X. Because that seems to be where what's happening within the creator tit for tat seems to be where it's all happening. And I just wanted to throw this information at y'all so you can take it in. Be aware of what's happening. Maybe not everybody has the right intent. Maybe their motivation isn't exactly altruistic. And see how this all can relate to certain cases that are out there. See, it goes beyond. I mean, when you have all this information and you process it, you research further, you gain knowledge, you speak to people that have experience in these areas, that broad unit that allows your knowledge to grow. You become educated in it, so you can have a more informed opinion, and then you can see what's happening. You won't be so easily manipulated, or you won't easily fall into the trappings of the quick fix in the chat to get on board. And I'm not immune to it either. About 10 years ago, I engaged in a similar tactic. Another creator was starting to be targeted, and it was a tit for tat. So those of us that were on panel, we all made puppets, and we used those, we were on live, and we used those puppets to I want to say it was kind of to be a parody or be satirical, but no, it was malicious. It was mean-spirited, and I shouldn't have done it. And I felt horrible afterwards, and I did apologize to the person. And I also reached out to somebody that I had extreme respect for to apologize to them because they saw me do it. And again, I wasn't seeing it. I was caught up. I was caught up. This person pissed us all off. This person was making a mockery of somebody's work that it it got out of hand. And while we weren't doxing or FOIA requesting, there were people in the background that were doing their darndest to try to remove the anonymity of one of the individuals that was targeted. And that was wrong. And that was very wrong. And so when I see now what's happening in a community that I once really enjoyed being in devolve into what I left 10 years ago is sad. And it just makes me see that it is a pattern. When people get comfortable where they're at, it has the capacity to, I say devolve, but evolve. It is a pattern. It's a circle. It is secular. Because when I first came into this arena, there wasn't all these beefs with QB. I didn't even know who AWBJ was. It was the hot topic of discussion mostly was the frivolous lawsuit that Bullhorn Betty filed against Queen Bee. I mean, when I came around, the same people that I ended up subscribing to their channels, become, chat friends with type of thing. We were in QBs. We were in Nonsense. We were in Kathy P. We were in Jones, and we were in Dietz. We were. It's that neighborhood, but now that neighborhood has fractured and turned into something that it wasn't when I got here. Now I will hear people say, well, we haven't changed. The viewers have changed. Well, okay. I don't know any of these people personally. Okay. We can see what fractured everything was looks like it was a specific case, and how people wanted to get more involved than what they should have. And again, I still am very frustrated with, and I'm still having a hard time reconciling the fact that complete strangers are so invested that they've created communities around missing children, when there's, in the grand scheme of things, while you're keeping that missing person's name out there, and because these channels are growing, they're getting more subscribers, they're getting more donations, and so forth. There's no new information, and nothing that you people are doing, or nothing that these creators or these chatters are doing is going to, at this stage of the game, resolve anything or solve the mystery that surrounds a missing child. And there's one more thing I'm gonna touch on real quick, and just for a moment, that I may or may not do a stream on, is the fact that everybody wants to focus on mom, because mom was the last one to see him, and that's, and statistics show you need to look at the age of the children involved. Statistically, yes, if we're talking a toddler or an infant, then you're going to have filicide. But when you're talking a teenager that has a mind of his own, is starting to exert independence and can fight back, the I don't want to speculate, but the occurrence of having a mom be responsible and with no disruption in the home, no evidence that's been revealed of foul play, to continually focus on the parent simply because they were the one home. Put on your thinking caps, guys. Teenagers sneak out of the house. Again, as I said in a previous live stream, no, it wasn't until my children were adults did I learn that yes, they were sneaking out of the house. They were going on walks with their friends in the middle of the night. They were, going out in the middle of the night to smoke a cigarette, or to, go, sneak a beer, or wander around the woods, because it's what teenage boys did. So to think just because um, this child was recently had a form of autism means that he's incapable of sneaking out of the house, incapable of forming that intent, or to be manipulative, or to be conniving, or to be sneaky like a teenager. I wouldn't rule it out. So, that's my opinion. That's my view, simply based on years of reading cases and being involved with um, the aftermath of children that have snuck out of the home or have ran away. So I'm just throwing that out there. I do have some white papers on that I think that if people are really serious about understanding all of this, as far as it goes with the with missing people and missing children, the advocacy involved and the investigations involved, and actual cases that have happened, and this may be beneficial to you. Um, and if you want to cover stuff like this, I think it would be wonderful for you to have that background information, so you can start gaining knowledge in the topics that you're discussing. So that's where I'm at with that. I hope you all have found some value in what I've talked about today. I know this is going to be on replay rotation, but also let you all know, I did start a Ko-fi, where I am going to be able to have some members and a little shop, um, because as I said, it's unlikely that this channel will be monetized. And I've had a couple of people ask, hey, I'd like to throw you a couple bucks for, a coffee. I appreciated, you put a lot of time into that presentation, and you don't have super chats or super thanks, or anything. You've got a PayPal. Well, my PayPal is a business PayPal, so I certainly wouldn't be comfortable giving that out. So I thought about it, and I wanted to do something that allowed for anonymous contributions and everything. So I do have that now. So I will go ahead and just put that up. There you go. Right there. If anybody would like to, um, I'm going to be posting things over there. It's a whole community. It's absolutely fascinating over there. It's like its own YouTube, but you've got blogs, you've got videos, you've got presentations. So I think what I might do is do, like, when I'm making tinctures, and maybe when I'm working on lace, I think maybe I'll have some of that content over there, so it doesn't interfere with my YouTube content. But in the meantime, I do have something now, and it's, if you'd like to use it, great. If not, that's fine too. I've been on 15 years unmonetized, so you know, I just wanted to let y'all know. But in the meantime, this is what we will be doing next time on the live stream. I hope to see you when the next time I go live. We're going to try to get back, well, when I say we, I mean me and my cats, on a more regular schedule. Um, you know, I'm getting better, so I'd like to be able to start hosting more of my own content, to keep my mind busy and to keep me occupied, since I'm still going, since yeah, just to keep my mind occupied while I continue to go through this next phase of what I'm dealing with. So thank you all for showing up on the replay. If you have any comments, please put them at the bottom, or you can shoot me an email. You find my email. It's blankwendyYT@gmail.com. All right, I'll see you all soon. Okay, bye-bye.